My name is Brandon Campbell. I'm a Director of Business Development at Ephesoft. And today I'm going to cover the concept of hybrid cloud capture to help accelerate digital transformation initiatives. So if you have any questions throughout, please do enter them into the chat window or to the Q&A window, and I will answer them live after the demonstration or respond via email if we run out of time. Now, nearly every market research firm has hinted at or predicted or warned of the importance of cloud computing in the last decade, and rising IT cloud spending trends over the past 5 years have validated these forecasts. The demand for improved operational efficiency to combat those shrinking profit margins. We see exponential growth in the generation of data. There's the globalization of the enterprise, and all of these things are contributing to the need for a better way to complete the back office processes that you're tasked with every day. So cloud computing is the likely solution to the problem. Now, in Predictions 2019 Cloud Computing, Forrester asserted that the only feasible approach that an enterprise can take to modernize their core business applications is to employ a cloud strategy in order to retain that competitive edge, and if not a complete cloud strategy, to augment their on-premise systems. And IDC actually predicted that by 2020, more than 67% of all enterprise infrastructure and software are going to be for cloud-based offerings, which means that within the next year or two, cloud solutions are going to be the norm. They're no longer going to be some emergent technology that maybe you should consider or maybe you should explore. So we're going to see enterprises that are utilizing a hybrid infrastructure that's going to be comprised of multiple private and public clouds that are going to support their on-premise systems. Additionally, Forbes posits in a recent study that digital transformation initiatives specifically are accounting for up to 63% of all instances where a company is utilizing a public cloud. And with document intelligence at the core of digital transformation, Ephesoft aims to lead the market with their offerings for cloud-based document processing, as well as hybrid cloud and on-premise capture solutions. Now, despite the clear benefits, transitioning all operational processes into the cloud has proved challenging for many organizations. If you're on this webinar, it might be a frustration that you're facing currently. And this holds true specifically for data and document management platforms. This is where a hybrid cloud capture solution is critical. Now, for most traditional document classification and data extraction systems, a server-based application can be installed on-premise in an organization's private cloud or hosted in an enterprise cloud and offered as a service. Ephesoft's HyperExtender, on the other hand, is a document processing engine hosted in the Ephesoft cloud. Now, this, used in conjunction with an on-premise or hosted instance of Transact, is a tool that enables expedited document throughput by offloading specifically the burden of image processing or OCR conversion to the cloud. So this is going to mean for your organization that it can take the daily document throughput requirements of a day-to-day process as the benchmark for implementing your capture tool, not necessarily the peak demand for events like a bulk ingestion from a back office file conversion project. So with the Ephesoft hybrid cloud support, you don't necessarily have to have that same need that you would to procure large servers or spin up multiple virtual server environment clusters like you would with a traditional capture solution. Serverless architecture is going to signify that easy scalability and that low cost. Now, imagine you're with an organization that's going to be subject to the spikes and lulls of seasonal business, like tax consultancies, companies in the retail industry. I mean, nearly every industry is going to have this. One month, your accounts receivable team could process 2 million purchase orders. And the next month, the accounts receivable team only manages 10,000 purchase orders. With an on-premise capture solution, that server architecture is going to need to reflect that high volume, that peak. And in low volume months, you still have that same large server configuration, which is both inefficient and wasteful and expensive. Now, cloud and hybrid capture solutions provide an attractive option for organizations with this type of cyclical business. Let's take, for example, insurance companies that hold policies against property damage and are subject to those surges in claim submissions. Depending on where you live in the country, odds are you probably have a specific policy against disaster events like hurricanes or tornadoes or fires. For me personally, I purchased a new home in my same city, but my zip code changed. I only moved maybe 1.5 miles away, but because of that, my mortgage company required that I purchase a flood insurance policy because of my new neighborhood's proclivity to flood. So that was a fun surprise, but it happens for pretty much everybody. So natural disasters, they have their seasonal peaks. And while an insurance company that carries something like a hurricane provision policy in Florida might deal with hundreds of thousands of claims during a peak month, they only process a few hundred in a low month. So enter Ephesoft's Cloud HyperExtender Stage Right. In addition to eliminating that financial investment in hardware and its associated maintenance, this type of supporting cloud capture tool is going to help accommodate those peaks and valleys of the document processing volume to ensure that your organization is not going to suffer from an overtaxed system and from potentially delayed work processes. Now, overall, when you're considering the merits of running an application in the cloud versus installing something on the box, two major pros in the cloud column are going to be infinite compute and infinite storage. So in a traditional capture process workflow, up to 95% of the application's server processing power is taken over with image to text conversion or OCR related tasks. That means that your application's running speed is only as great as the capacity of the servers on which it's installed. So with something like cloud computing, where you can offload that burden, your image conversion processing power isn't limited to the number of server cores that you purchased. So that means you can stop having those conversations, which I'm sure if you've ever engaged in a project like this, you've had that pre-project preparation call where someone asks some variation of, what's your recommended server configuration for this specific peak volume processing time in our annual business cycle? We don't want to have to aim for scoping something out at the height. We want to get the average. So like I mentioned, 90 to 95% of that processing power in a document capture solution, server capacity taken over by traditional OCR. So let's take a look at the page throughput in pages per minute, or PPM, of a traditional Transact server configuration, whether it's installed on-premise or in a private cloud. Now, just a quick note, when it comes to configuring projects, or what we call batch classes, for categorizing documents and extracting data in Transact, there's many different methods of extraction that can be employed. Similarly, there are a lot of different factors of a capture project and an overall server configuration that are going to impact the document throughput of a system. So what I'm showing here is basically benchmark numbers for comparison's sake. With a single server configuration of Transact, a 4-core installation is going to get you around 30 pages a minute. An 8-core system is going to get you about 75 pages per minute, and a 16-core configuration with a single server is going to get you about 130 pages per minute. Now, on the other hand, current testing of our HyperExtender has demonstrated a throughput of 2,500 pages per minute. And that's incredibly significant. Again, we want to focus on what the day-to-day benchmark is for your organization, and then let the HyperExtender offload that burden of those peaks so that you're not over-scoping or over-spec'ing your system and overpaying for something that you don't need. So our cloud HyperExtender is going to seamlessly integrate into the cloud processes and into the processing capacity with both new and existing deployments of Transact in your environment. And that's going to ensure that consistent performance. While I'm guessing most of you on this webinar are fairly familiar with the Transact workflow for processing documents, I want to do just a quick review. So we start off with the actual document ingestion. This can be accomplished by manually starting a batch of documents or through one of our import plugin. When I hop into a demonstration, I'm going to show you just how I can drag and drop in something into a watch folder. Then the application is going to actually process the pages, convert image files into machine-readable text, and then perform document classification and data extraction. If there are any exceptions in the batch itself, we're going to send those documents into validation to be reviewed by a human. So for example, an invoice number that wasn't recognized, or an insurance claim file number doesn't match the expected pattern. And then once everything that needs to be validated has been validated, the document will be exported according to that project's workflow design. So the Ephesoft Cloud HyperExtender piece is going to replace the folder import and page processing step of this overall application workflow to offload that resource-intensive activity to a cloud service that is specifically designed for that high throughput. So security is always going to be a key consideration when you're migrating to the cloud or utilizing a public cloud enterprise application. However, with the correct configuration and build, cloud technologies can be extremely secure. With considerable spending directed to cloud computing applications, like I talked about earlier, cloud-based technologies are rapidly advancing and are extremely strong against cyber attacks. and Ephesoft's HyperExtender is a highly secure application. So I wanted to cover some of the highlights of the platform that make this a sound product for use, even with the most sensitive data. So first, to protect data at rest, our HyperExtender has dedicated and segregated buckets for each customer kept in a specific region in AWS. There will be a server-side bucket with managed keys by default, and bring your own encryption keys, or BYOK, as I like to say, is a future feature for the cloud plugin as part of our roadmap. To protect data in transit, we utilize HTTPS endpoint to prevent man-in-the-middle attacks. Additionally, in order to ensure a data purge for documents that are uploaded and then exported, the document input and output buckets, which is where the uploaded and exported documents are temporarily held while they're processed, are cleared every 24 hours. So overall, security was a key component of the build to ensure data is protected and secure. All right, so I want to take just a quick look in the chat window, see if we have any questions before I hop into the demonstration, and I think we're good to go there. So let's open up the demo here. All right, so what I'm looking at right now is the Ephesoft Transact home screen. This is a thin client web-based product, so I will log into the administrative user interface, the end user interface, through this thin client. What I'm going to be processing are insurance claim files and insurance-related type documents. In this case here, I have a claims file manual that's specifically for flood insurance. It's about a 300-page long document. And I'm going to go ahead and upload several of these into the user interface. I'm going to create a couple of batches to automatically run to take a look at how they're processed. So before I do that, quick look at the Transact user interface. I'm going to log in as an administrator and take a look at my batch class. And we refer to a specific project that's defined for processing documents as a batch class. So I've built out a little project for processing insurance documents. And I'm going to go ahead and open up this project and take a look at all of the different document types that I have as a part of this particular project. So let's say you are in the mailroom of a local insurance company, and you're taking in claim submission files, which can be dropped off or mailed or faxed in. So every day you're getting hundreds of claims forms that have to be scanned in bulk and then uploaded for processing purposes. With this type of project, we can simply allow a mass bulk scan of documents, of claim files, related correspondence, and then allow the Transact application to automatically identify those types of documents, split them up, extract the information, and then export and route them to where they need to go as a part of the overall work process. So this is just a quick view of what that project configuration looks like, from the document types that were trained and the actual fields that might have been configured for extraction. Now, what I'm going to do is I have this claims manual file, which, like I said, is about a 300-page file. I'm going to call them my claim file scans. And I have here a series of documents. I'm going to grab just a handful of these, since these are the large files. And I'm just going to drag and drop them into the watch folder that Transact is monitoring. And anytime new documents appear in this particular folder, Transact is going to grab them and add them to a new batch. And we can see here it's already grabbed those documents and created a temporary file for processing them to run them through the project that has been configured. So I'm going to exit out of here. I'm going to open up my user interface once again, and I'm going to navigate over to the batch instance management screen, which is basically just going to give me a quick snapshot of what the batches I have running are at what process they're in. So I have a batch here that's currently in the ready for validation stage. And if I take a look at this bottom right-hand corner of the screen, I can see the internal application workflow for how documents move through the system. We start off with a folder import, we process the pages, we assemble the documents, we perform a review of any documents that might be miscategorized, we extract information, and then we validate information if it needs to be validated or a human needs to review it. Now, these first couple of steps are where the HyperExtender the HyperExtender is going to supersede so that we're not relying purely on this 8-core application. So I'm going to do a quick refresh here. I can see that the claims that I drag and dropped have been uploaded and will now be running. And while this is running, I want to go ahead and open up this particular batch to give you a quick look at what it looks like to validate information within Transact. And then we'll hop back over into the batch instance manager. So here in the validation user interface, I have a collection of documents that were processed as a part of this particular workflow. I've got my claims manual, a flood insurance claim form where I didn't extract any information, a claim appeal form where I did extract some information. And basically, as an end user, my particular role is to take a look at any of the documents that have been flagged as needing review. In this case, I have just one document highlighted in red. And I can see here that the reason that this particular document was flagged is because the OCR confidence threshold is a little bit lower than what we specified for this project. So it's very simple as an end user to hop in here, click on this value, see where it's highlighted on the page to verify, yes, in fact, Brosnan is the name of the claimant that I'm looking for, press validate. And now this entire batch is going to be able to move through into the export phase as a part of the overall workflow. So even if you are scanning and processing hundreds and hundreds of documents in batch, to be able to quickly identify pieces of information that you need to pull from the page, verify that the application is in fact performing as expected, is a fairly straightforward process. All right, so I'm going to hop back out of the validation user interface and into the batch instance manager user interface. And what I'm going to see here is basically I have these 4 300-page documents currently running. Oh, nope, and they've already gone through the process. So I was hoping to show you very quickly how they move through the workflow, but I can see that every single one of them has already gone through the import and process modules, been reviewed by the application, gone through the extraction steps, the validation mode, and because there weren't any concerns about any fields of information that it was extracting, it already moved through into export. And I didn't particularly assign an export location or a plugin for this particular project. So for purposes of this project, we've already completed this document workflow. So in the very short time I was speaking, I believe it was about 90 seconds, we had 4 300-page documents run through our entire process in a very short period of time. Again, this is an 8-core application where typically we see something, I believe it's around 130 pages per minute, and we're getting much better results than what we would normally anticipate.